mystery category. Okay, big announcement. Works perfectly for episode 10. The timing is about right. Feel like we've gotten pretty close over these 10 episodes, so I can talk to you pretty frankly. Why am I doing these? You know, it seems like kind of a strange thing. I've got all sorts of year-long projects, and they all have an impetus. The Productive Commuter blog was because I knew my wife and I were going to be looking for a house, and I wanted to see how my commute was going to change from the whole Brooklyn 40-minute thing to where I am now, out in the woods, takes an hour and 40 minutes, and that was a really cool transition to document, and I think it's going to be fun. It's actually already been kind of fun to look back at those things and see how things have changed. So the impetus, of course, behind doing this blog this year is something involving change that I want to document. Maybe you see where I'm going already, but you know, so all this has been so far really is me talking about, oh, here's some projects I'm working on, here's some TV shows I'm watching. It's kind of the bullet points of how I'm spending my week. And you might be curious why I'm interested in documenting these things. It's not just that I like to hear my own voice, it's because my wife and I having our first child. Ba-bing! It's coming in late August, early September. That's a lot easier to say because that way you don't have people calling you in August going, have you given birth yet? Which would be terrible. So it's really interesting now to start to document these things and how I spend my week because, as you know, I always get 1,000 things going on, and obviously once there's a baby around, it's going to be basically one thing going on, baby. So it's going to be really fascinating for me to chart how, as time goes by, you know, how things are changing. I might talk a little bit about, you know, things like what it's like to be changing diapers or whatever it might be occupying me that week, which you may or may not have any interest in, hence why it's great to have categories. I'll make this whole mystery category thing, we're just going to call this category baby. This will be the baby category, and I'll probably start doing more with that house category, and you'll see a little bit more about how Alex deals with domestic life and all that kind of thing. So that can be kind of fun. The time I'll actually have to do this kind of thing is also going to be an interesting point because right now I'm doing stuff with green screen and it's happening fairly quickly. You know, I basically got like a 2-day turnaround time where right now I'm finishing this up on Monday and then I'm trying to put it out on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, but really it's just like a couple hours of editing, and the green screen stuff is fairly automatic now, and then I got to throw some images in there. But you know, chances are I'm going to get to a point where if I really want to have this coming out every week, there's going to be some weeks where I'm just going to be like up against the camera, like exhausted, tears running down my eyes. I can't do it this week. There's baby fluids everywhere, and I'll talk to you next week. And that'll just be the whole episode. That'll be all I can manage to do in that week, which would be fine. Like, that to me is interesting. It'd be interesting to go from fairly full production, lots of green screen stuff, lots of TV shows and movies and all this kind of free time stuff, to a week where I'm just like, this week I read 14 pages of a book and slept 3 hours and there's a baby. And it's going to be really interesting to talk about preconceptions versus reality, because no matter how many people I talk to and no matter how much I think about it, no matter how many books I read, like this one right now, which has an interesting part in it where it's saying like, oh, it's very important to only read the latest books, and this book came out in like the late 80s or something like that. So that's all kind of fun. But no matter how much research I do, inevitably there's going to be things where it's like, this is nothing like I thought it would be. So, you know, I mean, I hope. One of the things I keep thinking about is Louis C.K. is someone who, in a non-joking manner, I think he talked on Mark Maron's podcast about how being a father changed him, in that he thought he was going to hate it. He always hated children and babies and all that kind of thing before, and he loved sleep, and he thought that was going to be absolutely terrible. And he found as soon as his first daughter was born that he didn't mind, that like he loved this person unconditionally, and yeah, he wasn't sleeping much, but it was okay, and he absolutely was willing to care about this other human being in a way that he'd never done before. And something like that's kind of inspiring. Like, I'm not that worried. Maybe I should be more worried, but I feel like I have the capacity for love and the energy and the willingness to do whatever it takes to be a good father and raise a child well. But, you know, it's obviously going to be hard. It's an experience I've obviously never had before. Obviously, my wife and I have a very loving, supportive family and friends and all sorts of people also going through this whole pregnancy thing right now, and it's great to be able to talk to them and get their takes on everything. But no matter what, there's going to be something new and sometimes hard, and of course that's part of it. you know, I've spent enough time in New York City now that it's very interesting to me to be able to compare the people who are kind of the single professionals that really care about their career or just for whatever reason don't want to have children. And some of them, you know, I know who are in their 40s and they look really young, and they remind me of people who I know in their 20s, because I think it's really the act of becoming a parent that changes people into what as a kid you associate with like adults. You know how there's that kind of thing where, you know, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, that person's really old. It's not even so much the way they look, I think. There's a certain behavior to it and a certain sense of, not responsibility, but something like responsibility that I think comes from being a parent, where your life changes because you can no longer focus on yourself, or you shouldn't focus on yourself as much. You're forced to become a more selfless person, focused on making sure this other person can survive and be fed and live a happy, healthy life. So it's going to change me, absolutely, and I'm interested in documenting that in whatever way I can, even if, as I say, some of these videos might be very short. So I hope you enjoy that process with me. There's some exciting things coming up on the horizon. In a couple weeks, we're going to know whether it's a boy or a girl. Perfectly happy to share that. I can say that I'm nervous about if it's a girl because I did not grow up really around girls that much. Like I grew up with two brothers, and I didn't really hang out with any of the girls at school my age that much or anything like that. So there's an episode of Malcolm in the Middle I recommend you check out. It's one called, I think, If Boys Were Girls, and Hal in this, Bryan Cranston's character, I think, as I perceive it right now, is exactly what I believe I would become. This very overweight, anxious dad who cannot say no to his daughters, because I feel like in some ways daughters are more clever than sons in that certain way, where if they can figure out how to push your buttons in the right way and get what they want, then they will. And I don't mean that in a malicious way, just I think in many ways young girls are smarter than young boys. So, you know, if I have boys, or a boy to start off with, I think that I'll have some sense of how to handle them, because myself and my two brothers were three very different people. We kind of cover, I'd say, the spectrum of young boy to young adult personalities, and that I feel like that prepared me pretty well, because I'll have a sense of what they're thinking. A girl may as well be a little alien. I'm not going to know how to handle that, so it's going to be obviously an adventure either way, but particularly interesting if it's a girl. My wife and I have all sorts of interesting debates going on about, you know, raising children and things with video games and things with schooling and things with chores and all this stuff that's going to be obviously a big point of debate and interest as the years go by. But let's focus on the immediate future right now. Things like baby names and that kind of stuff, very different for boy versus girl, and I'll keep you updated. We're gonna find out very soon. So if you ever have any opinions or comments or questions or all those kinds of things, please, please, please engage with me. Don't be shy. I'm happy to talk back and have an exciting conversation with you. Yeah, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Here's a video. And now you can ask me Danton gets 3 guesses for what he thinks my big secret project of the year is.
Okay.
It's a bonus feature.
Secret project, bonus feature. Okay.
That I'm not supposed to talk about, but I'll let him figure it out.
Is it related to writing on a film or TV show?
No.
Okay. Is it related to a video game?
No.
Is it related to an application?
No.
Oh.
If you have more, you can keep going.
I think that's all I have off the top of my head.
That's funny.
It's sad. I'll beat him up off stage and we'll find out what it's
That's
about.
okay. Well, I want to see if Danton can actually pull this off, so maybe I'll give him a hint. What kind of project would be so consuming that maybe it might even be the impetus for a blog like this, where I'm curious how my entire life and everything I have time for might actually change because I'm so consumed by this project? Like, what would be something that takes up that much time?
Parenting?
Could it? Could that be it?
Oh!
Could he be right? What do you think, audience? Not for the blog, but Danton and his wife are due in May, and that's very exciting. And said child of wife and I would actually be in the same school year, which would be kind of cool. So if we manage to convince them to like move up and live in the abandoned house next to us, then they'd all
I got vibes all weekend. That's what's happening.
They'd go to school together, which would be really cool. That'd be pretty neat.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.